King Sarthax of the Zorith Dominion was a being of unmatched power. The Zorith were an ancient and fearsome alien race, feared across the galaxy for their brutal conquests and advanced technology. Their empire had crushed countless civilizations, and Sarthax, the ruler of this mighty empire, sat atop a throne built on the bones of his enemies. To him, no species was a challenge. No army could stand against the Zorith's might. When the scouts reported the discovery of Earth, Sarthax barely gave it a second thought. The humans, they said, were primitive, weak, and divided. Their technology was far behind the rest of the galaxy. Their cities were small, their weapons outdated, and their military was no match for the Zorith war machines. This was a species he could defeat without breaking a sweat. Sarthax laughed when he received the report. The humans, the most recent addition to the galactic stage, had no chance. The Zorith had crushed empires far stronger than Earth's, and there was no reason to believe that humans would be any different. His generals agreed, and plans for the invasion were set in motion. From his royal palace on the capital planet of Zorith, King Sarthax surveyed the universe with arrogance. He believed that the galaxy was his to conquer and that no force could stand in his way. He had never been challenged in his life, and he saw no reason why the humans should be any different. As the fleet was prepared to leave for Earth, Sarthax felt no fear, no doubt. He even made a public announcement, declaring that the conquest of Earth would be a swift and easy victory. The citizens of his empire cheered in unison, and Sarthax reveled in the adoration, confident that nothing could stop him. The Zorith fleet, with its massive warships, advanced weaponry, and experienced soldiers, launched toward Earth with overwhelming speed. As the fleet entered the human solar system, Sarthax looked out over the fleet's progress from his command center. "This will be a joke," he muttered to himself, already planning how he would celebrate his victory. He would crush the humans quickly, enslave them, and take their resources. The planet would be his in no time. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans had no idea what was coming. The governments had long been divided and focused on their own struggles. There was no unified military force ready for an alien invasion. Humanity was far from prepared for the scale of what was about to happen. But that was something King Sarthax didn't even consider. He believed that his empire's strength was enough to crush any resistance that might rise, and he saw no reason to think otherwise. He smiled to himself as the invasion fleet neared Earth, his victory already in his mind. He was wrong, of course. But at that moment, King Sarthax could only see a future where the Zorith Empire reigned supreme. He thought humanity would fall without a fight, and that belief would soon cost him everything. The Zorith fleet arrived at Earth with a terrifying presence. Massive warships filled the sky, blotting out the sun as they descended through the atmosphere. King Sarthax watched from his command center, confident that nothing could stop the Zorith. The humans, he thought, were nothing more than ants beneath the might of his empire. On Earth, panic spread quickly as the world's governments scrambled to respond. The invasion had come without warning, and the nations were unprepared for such an overwhelming force. Cities across the planet trembled as the alien ships hovered above them, their weapons aimed at the surface, ready to strike at any moment. People could only watch in fear as the ships unleashed their power, shattering buildings and causing chaos. But something unexpected began to happen. Despite the overwhelming fear, humans did not fall into despair. Governments and military leaders, usually at odds with each other, set aside their differences and began to form a united defense. In the face of the impossible, humanity showed something that Sarthax had not anticipated: unity and resilience. Across the globe, resistance forces quickly gathered. The world's best pilots, scientists, and military leaders came together to devise a plan. They may not have had the advanced technology of the Zorith, but they had something far more valuable: creativity, determination, and an unshakable will to protect their home. Human military commanders held meetings, discussing how to fight the invaders. They knew they couldn't match the Zorith in firepower, but they could use their knowledge of Earth's terrain to their advantage. The Zoreth ships were powerful, but they were also massive and not designed for close-quarters combat in Earth's atmosphere. The humans began developing unconventional strategies to level the playing field. Meanwhile, King Sarthax grew impatient. From the bridge of his flagship, he watched the human defenses form, and he sneered in disbelief. "Pathetic," he muttered to his generals. "They are nothing more than insects, scurrying to protect their fragile world. They'll be crushed before the day ends." But as the first battle began, Sarthax's overconfidence started to fade. The humans fought back with surprising tenacity. Their pilots, though not as experienced in interstellar warfare, were resourceful and used the terrain to their advantage. They lured Zoreth warships into narrow canyons, using stealth and speed to strike at weak points in the alien ships. The Zoreth soldiers, though skilled, were not prepared for the kind of unpredictable tactics that the humans employed. In space, the humans launched counterattacks using their most advanced fighter jets, striking at the larger Zoreth ships in coordinated waves. They used their knowledge of their planet's atmosphere and gravity to outmaneuver the slower Zoreth warships, delivering blows that shocked the invaders. King Sarthax watched in frustration as his fleet took unexpected losses. His commanders were beginning to report that the humans were not backing down as he had expected. This wasn't just a fight for survival. The humans were defending their planet with an intensity Sarthax had never seen before. "Impossible," he whispered, his confidence shaken for the first time. "These weak humans, they're not as helpless as I thought." Sarthax could not deny it anymore. The humans were far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. But he still believed victory was within his grasp. He had underestimated them, yes, but now it was time to crush their resistance once and for all. The battle for Earth had begun in full force. The Zoreth fleet, with its massive ships and advanced weaponry, loomed over Earth's cities, ready to destroy them. But the humans, though outmatched, refused to back down. Across the planet, every available military force had mobilized, creating a united front to defend their world. Their first major battle against the Zoreth would test their strength, courage, and creativity. The Zoreth launched their attack with precision, unleashing wave after wave of firepower from their ships. Laser beams and plasma bolts tore through the atmosphere, hitting Earth's cities and military bases with deadly accuracy. Buildings crumbled, and explosions lit up the sky. The world seemed to tremble under the force of the alien assault. Yet, amidst the chaos, the human resistance fought back with everything they had. The skies above Earth were filled with the sound of jet engines as human fighter planes raced to meet the Zoreth warships. These pilots, many of them ordinary citizens called to action, were not experienced in intergalactic combat, but they were skilled in the ways of aerial combat, and they used their knowledge of Earth's terrain to gain the upper hand. Human planes flew at lightning speed, dodging the alien weapons and attacking from unexpected angles. The Zoreth ships, while massive and powerful, were slow to react. Their advanced technology allowed them to track human movements, but the pilots' agility and speed caught them off guard. With quick maneuvers, the human fighters fired missiles at vulnerable spots on the Zoreth ships. Some of their shots hit, causing sparks and explosions on the alien craft. King Sarthax watched the battle unfold from his flagship, growing increasingly frustrated. His fleet was supposed to crush these humans effortlessly, but instead, they were managing to strike back with surprising effectiveness. The Zoreth had superior firepower, but the humans had something the Zoreth lacked: creativity. A group of human engineers, working together with military leaders, had developed a weapon that could disrupt the Zoreth's energy shields. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to weaken the Zoreth ships long enough for human forces to land significant blows. As the human forces attacked, Sarthax ordered his commanders to focus on wiping out the most dangerous human resistance groups. He refused to believe that these weak humans could hold their ground for long. However, the Zoreth king's arrogance was beginning to fade. For every ship they destroyed, The humans seemed to replace it with more resistance fighters. Earth's underground bunkers became a network of human resistance, and the world's best strategists devised new ways to combat the alien invaders. What the Zoreth didn't understand was that humanity's strength came not from overwhelming numbers or technology, but from their ability to adapt and innovate under pressure. One by one, human squadrons targeted the Zoreth warship's weak points, attacking their engines, power cores, and weapon systems. For the first time in the battle, Zoreth ships began to fall from the sky, burning up in Earth's atmosphere. The Zoreth fleet was losing ships, and their commander, Sarthax, could no longer hide his growing concern. The Zoreth king, always confident in his superiority, now faced a troubling truth. The humans were far more resilient than he had ever imagined. They were not giving up, and with every passing minute, they were learning more about how to fight back. Sarthax's confidence began to falter as he realized that this battle would not be as easy as he had thought. King Sarthax sat on his throne aboard his flagship, his hands clenched into fists as he watched the screen. His fleet, once the pride of the Zoreth Dominion, was now suffering unexpected losses. The humans, whom he had dismissed as weak and unworthy of his time, were proving to be a much greater challenge than he could have ever imagined. The Zoreth king's patience was running thin. "Enough of this," he growled, slamming his fist onto the console in front of him. "These humans must be crushed, or they will continue to defy us." He ordered a full-scale counterattack. His fleet had far more ships than the humans, and their firepower was still unmatched. Sarthax believed that with a concentrated strike, he could wipe out the human resistance once and for all. He would show them the true might of the Zoreth Dominion. As the Zoreth forces regrouped and launched their counteroffensive, they came at the humans with a renewed fury. Waves of ships descended on Earth's remaining defenses, and the skies were filled with flashes of energy as the battle intensified. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Despite this, the humans did not falter. They knew that if they lost now, their world would be destroyed. Earth's best military minds had come together and devised a plan. Using their knowledge of Zoreth technology, they had developed a weapon that could disrupt the alien ship's energy shields, rendering them vulnerable to attack. Human engineers, who had once worked on peaceful technology, now used their skills to create weapons of war. In underground bunkers, scientists and soldiers worked tirelessly to perfect the device. The weapon was ready, and it was time to use it. The counterattack began with human pilots executing risky, high-speed maneuvers to draw the Zoreth forces into tight formations. The humans' small but agile fighter jets darted around the Zoreth ships, leading them into a trap. The Zoreth, still confident in their superior numbers, pursued without hesitation. As the alien ships clustered together, human ground forces launched the new weapon from Earth's surface. The device sent a pulse of energy that disrupted the Zoreth's shields. For the first time in the battle, the Zoreth ships were vulnerable. The human fighters, now armed with the knowledge of where to strike, dove in, firing missiles and laser weapons at the weakened ships. The results were devastating. Zoreth warships exploded in the sky, raining debris down to Earth. Sarthax's face twisted with fury as his ships were destroyed one by one. He had not expected the humans to have such ingenuity. The Zoreth king had always believed that strength and numbers were enough to dominate the galaxy, but now he was learning that the humans' ability to adapt and innovate was a force to be reckoned with. From his command center, Sarthax ordered his fleet to retreat, but the humans were relentless. Every Zoreth ship that tried to escape was pursued by human fighters. The tide of the battle had turned, and now the Zoreth were on the defensive. The human resistance was not just surviving. They were fighting back with a strength that Sarthax could not ignore. The Zoreth king's arrogance had been shattered, and for the first time since the invasion began, he wondered if the humans might just have the power to defeat him. The tide of the battle had shifted in a way no one could have predicted. King Sarthax watched helplessly as his once proud fleet was slowly dismantled by the humans' ingenuity and determination. The Zoreth had entered the war expecting an easy conquest, but instead they were now facing a relentless and resourceful enemy. The humans, though vastly outnumbered, had managed to strike a blow to the Zoreth war machine. The new weapon they had developed, designed to disrupt the alien ship's energy shields, had turned the tables. Now, the Zoreth ships were vulnerable, and human forces had exploited this weakness. Zoreth warships were being destroyed faster than Sarthax could order reinforcements, and the king's once unshakable confidence was beginning to crack. From his command center aboard the flagship, Sarthax barked orders to his generals, demanding that they counter the humans' new weapon. But each time they tried, the humans adapted even faster. They had proven themselves to be unpredictable, and the Zoreth could no longer rely on their usual tactics. The very thing that had made them so feared, strength and power, was now working against them. On Earth, human commanders coordinated strikes with military precision. Their resistance forces had learned to use the terrain to their advantage, drawing the Zoreth ships into areas where their massive size became a disadvantage. What the Zoreth had failed to understand was the humans' ability to think on their feet, to find solutions in moments of crisis. Human pilots, despite their lack of advanced alien technology, fought with unmatched skill. They had learned to use Zoreth weapons against the invaders. Many of the alien weapons were powerful, but they required careful control and a deep understanding of their systems. The humans had begun to reverse engineer captured Zoreth tech, using it to create new defenses and counterattacks. With each victory, they gained more knowledge and more resources, making them an ever-growing threat to the Zoreth. As the battle raged on, the Zoreth fleet began to retreat. For the first time in the conflict, Sarthax saw his ships fall back, their morale shattered. The humans had pushed them to the brink. This was no longer a battle for territory. It had become a fight for survival. Sarthax, who had once dismissed humanity as weak, was now facing the terrifying reality that Earth was not the easy conquest he had imagined. On Earth's surface, people celebrated their small victories, but they knew the fight was far from over. The Zoreth were still a formidable enemy, and the war was far from won. But the humans had proven something important. They could stand up to the might of the Zoreth Dominion. They could fight back. Sarthax paced nervously in his flagship's command room, his thoughts clouded with doubt. He had never been challenged like this before. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way to regain the upper hand. He had underestimated the humans, and now he was paying the price. The Zoreth king was not used to failure, but the humans, with their unyielding spirit and quick thinking, had turned the tide of the war. The battle was far from over, but Sarthax knew one thing for certain. Humanity was no longer the weak species he had once laughed at. King Sarthax stood in the command center of his flagship, seething with anger. His once proud fleet had been decimated, and the humans were proving to be far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Every time he thought the situation was under control, the humans found a way to turn the tide against him. His arrogance had led him to believe that the Zoreth were invincible, but now he was questioning everything. As the Zoreth fleet retreated further, Sarthax knew that time was running out. His resources were dwindling, and Earth's defenses were growing stronger with each passing day. The humans had a tenacity he had not anticipated. They were not just defending their world. They were fighting for their very survival, and they were willing to do whatever it took to win. Sarthax paced back and forth, his mind racing. His generals had suggested a full retreat, but he refused to accept defeat. The Zoreth were an empire built on strength and conquest. They could not afford to lose to these weak humans. There had to be a way to turn the tide. He needed a plan, a bold, decisive move that would strike fear into the hearts of the humans and break their resolve. Then, an idea came to him. It was dangerous, risky, and would cost many lives, but it was the only option he saw left. He would deploy the ultimate weapon of the Zoreth Dominion, the Singularity Bomb. The Singularity Bomb was a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of creating a small black hole that would suck in everything within a massive radius. It was a weapon designed for total annihilation, able to wipe out entire planets. Sarthax had kept it as a last resort, but now, with Earth on the brink of slipping from his grasp, he had no choice. If he could use the bomb on Earth's largest cities, it would break the human spirit and force them to surrender. He immediately issued the order to prepare the weapon. His fleet began to move into position, and Zoreth scientists worked to ready the bomb for deployment. Sarthax knew that using the Singularity Bomb would be a final, irreversible step. It would destroy the planet, but it would also ensure that the Zoreth remained the dominant force in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, the human resistance was not resting on their laurels. They knew that the Zoreth would soon make another move, and they were preparing for it. While they had scored victories, they were aware that the real challenge was still ahead. They couldn't let their guard down. Human scientists and military leaders were working around the clock to develop a countermeasure to the Zoreth's new weapon. They had seen what the Zoreth were capable of, and they knew that if they didn't act fast, the Singularity Bomb could end the war in an instant. The fate of their planet depended on it. As the humans scrambled to find a way to counter the Zoreth's ultimate weapon, Sarthax's fleet moved into position. He had made his decision. He would show the humans that they were no match for the Zoreth. The Singularity Bomb would change the course of the war, one way or another. On Earth, a sense of urgency hung in the air. After the initial victories against the Zoreth, the humans had come to realize that their fight for survival was far from over. They had wounded the alien fleet, but now, with the Zoreth preparing to deploy their most terrifying weapon, the Singularity Bomb, the stakes had never been higher. The human resistance knew that time was running out. The Zoreth had begun to move into position to launch the Singularity Bomb, and if it hit, Earth would be destroyed in an instant. It was a weapon that no one could survive, and the humans could not allow it to be used. But how could they stop such a powerful weapon? In secret underground bunkers, Earth's best minds were gathered. Military leaders, scientists, and engineers worked together, determined to find a way to stop the bomb. They had already developed several innovative strategies to fight the Zoreth, but this weapon was unlike anything they had ever faced before. Dr. Amelia Harper, one of the leading scientists in the human resistance, stood before a holographic map of Earth's orbit. Her eyes were tired, and the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. She turned to the room of experts and military commanders. "We have one shot at this," she said, her voice steady despite the pressure. "The Zoreth Singularity Bomb is designed to create a black hole, which will suck in everything around it. The Zoreth will likely target one of Earth's largest cities, maybe two, and that will be the end of us. We have no time to waste." General Marcus Holt, one of the leaders of the human forces, stepped forward. "We can't match their firepower, but we know Earth. If we can get close enough to the bomb's launch site, we might be able to disable it before they fire." The room fell silent. The plan was risky, extremely risky. The Zoreth were positioned in high orbit, and getting close to their fleet was near impossible. Even if they managed to get past the alien defenses, they would have only moments to disable the bomb before it was launched. It was a suicide mission, and everyone in the room knew it. But there was no other choice. Earth had no more time to prepare. "We need volunteers," General Holt said. "We need the best pilots, the best technicians, and the bravest souls. We can't wait for a perfect plan. We need to act now." Amelia Harper nodded, a determined look on her face. "We've been fighting this war for survival. We've faced impossible odds before. We can do this." The human resistance had already demonstrated time and time again that they were willing to take risks in the name of survival. Now that same spirit would drive them to take their most dangerous gamble yet. A small squadron of elite pilots was chosen for the mission. These were the best of the best, each one willing to put everything on the line for the future of their world. The squadron would infiltrate the Zoreth fleet and try to disable the Singularity Bomb before it could be launched. As the pilots prepared for the mission, Amelia and General Holt shared one last look. Both knew the risks. The Zorath were merciless, and if the mission failed, there would be no escape. But they had no other choice. They were fighting for the future of Earth. The squadron launched, and the clock was ticking. Their gamble had begun. The fate of the planet rested in their hands. They had one chance to stop the Zorath, and failure was not an option. The small human squadron sped through the blackness of space, their engines burning bright as they approached the Zorath fleet. The pilots, handpicked for their courage and skill, knew this was a one-way mission. The Singularity bomb, nestled deep within the heart of the Zorath flagship, was moments from being armed. If they failed, Earth would be lost. Lieutenant Sarah Connors, the squadron leader, kept her voice calm as she addressed her team through the comms. "All right, listen up. We've trained for this moment. We've studied their defenses, we've learned their weak points, and we know what's at stake. Stay sharp, stay focused, and remember, we're fighting for everyone back home." Her words brought a grim determination to the squadron. Each pilot carried the weight of the planet's survival on their shoulders, but they didn't let fear consume them. They had all seen what the Zorath were capable of. They knew the cost of failure. As they approached the massive Zorath flagship, their radars lit up with dozens of enemy ships. The Zorath fleet was waiting for them. Plasma bolts streaked across the void, and the humans' small, agile fighters twisted and turned to avoid the deadly fire. The Zorath ships were large and powerful, but they lacked the maneuverability of the human craft. "Stay tight," Sarah ordered as her squadron weaved through the chaos. "We need to punch through their defenses. Keep them distracted while I head for the bomb." The squadron broke into two groups. Half the team engaged the Zorath fighters, drawing their attention and creating a diversion. The other half, led by Sarah, made a daring dash toward the flagship. The Zorath defenses were overwhelming, but the humans' unpredictability gave them an edge. Sarah's ship zigzagged through the enemy fire, her hands gripping the controls tightly. Her heart pounded as the flagship loomed closer. The Singularity bomb was housed in the lower section of the ship, heavily guarded by automated turrets and Zorath soldiers. Sarah's plan was simple but dangerous. She would board the ship, plant an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, device near the bomb, and disable it. "Cover me," Sarah called out as she approached the flagship. Two of her squad mates, Jason and Alina, flew alongside her, blasting enemy turrets and creating a path. Sarah's fighter latched onto the hull of the flagship, and she quickly disembarked, armed with the EMP device. Inside the flagship, alarms blared. Zorath soldiers moved to intercept her, but Sarah's training and determination drove her forward. She ducked behind cover, taking out guards with precise shots from her blaster. The corridors of the ship were alien and intimidating, but she pushed through, her mind focused on the mission. Finally, she reached the chamber where the Singularity bomb was located. It was massive, glowing ominously as Zorath engineers worked to arm it. Sarah's breath caught, but she didn't hesitate. She activated the EMP device and attached it to the bomb. The Zorath engineers noticed her too late. With a fierce determination, Sarah activated the device, sending a surge of energy through the bomb's systems. Sparks flew, and the arming sequence froze. The bomb was disabled, but the alarms around her grew louder. Reinforcements were closing in, and Sarah knew she wouldn't make it out alive. She spoke into her comms. "Mission accomplished. The bomb is offline. Finish the fight. Tell them. We didn't give up." Her squad mates heard her final words, their hearts heavy. Sarah's sacrifice had given humanity a fighting chance. Now, it was up to them to finish the battle and ensure that Earth would endure. The moment Sarah's voice cut off, the squadron knew they had no time to grieve. Her heroic sacrifice had given them the opening they needed to finish the fight. The Singularity bomb was disabled, and now the Zorath flagship was vulnerable. If they could destroy it, the rest of the fleet would fall apart. "Everyone, focus fire on the flagship," Jason called out, his voice trembling but determined. For Sarah. For Earth. The remaining human pilots regrouped and began their assault on the massive Zoreth flagship. Despite its size and power, the ship was no longer the untouchable force it once seemed. With its defenses weakened and the bomb neutralized, it was just another target. The humans used everything they had, missiles, lasers, and even captured Zoreth tech, to hammer the ship. On board the flagship, King Sarthax watched in horror as his command ship shuddered under the relentless human attack. His once pristine fleet was in chaos, with Zoreth ships either retreating or being destroyed. Sarthax's pride had led him to underestimate the humans, and now he was paying the price. Pull back. Sarthax bellowed to his officers, but it was too late. The human pilots had pushed too far, fought too hard, and were no longer afraid of the Zoreth. They were united, driven by the sacrifices of those who had given their lives to protect Earth. Jason, now leading the squadron, spotted a weak point in the flagship's structure, a large crack near the ship's core. Aim for the crack. He yelled into his comms. We take that out, and the whole thing goes down. The squadron rallied, diving toward the target with precision. Zoreth fighters tried to intercept them, but the humans' agility and teamwork proved too much. One by one, the pilots fired on the weak point, each shot driving the Zoreth flagship closer to destruction. Inside the flagship, Sarthax's anger turned to desperation. For the first time in his reign, he felt fear. He had mocked the humans, calling them weak and insignificant, but now they had brought the mighty Zoreth dominion to its knees. His empire, his pride, was crumbling before his eyes. With a deafening explosion, the humans' final salvo struck the flagship's core. The ship began to collapse in on itself, flames and debris consuming its once mighty form. Jason and the squadron pulled back, watching as the Zoreth flagship disintegrated. The sight of their leader's ship being destroyed broke the morale of the remaining Zoreth forces. One by one, the alien ships turned and fled, abandoning the fight. The humans had done the impossible. They had not only survived, but had won. Cheers erupted across Earth as the news spread. People flooded the streets, celebrating the victory that had once seemed impossible. The human spirit, ingenuity, and courage had triumphed over a superior foe. As Jason and the squadron returned to Earth, they were hailed as heroes. But their victory was bittersweet. They mourned the loss of Sarah and all those who had given their lives in the fight. Their sacrifices had paved the way for humanity's survival and ensured that the Zoreth would think twice before underestimating Earth again. King Sarthax, aboard a retreating ship, stared out into the void of space. His empire was broken, his pride shattered. He had laughed at the humans, mocking their weakness. Now he understood the truth. Humanity was anything but weak. And somewhere, deep in the galaxy, a lesson echoed, a warning to all who might dare to underestimate the people of Earth. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and they would never stop fighting for their survival.